Thomas and St. John and St. Cry. Nothing can come between us but the waters that divide, yeah. Even though we're just a few square miles, I travel around the world with Virgin Island pride, yeah. A lot of people still going through strife, and still we live a joyful life. That's why the place nice, so nice, so nice. Sweet, sweet St. Thomas nice, so nice, so nice. St. Cry full of pure vibes, so nice, so nice. St. John a real paradise, so nice, so nice. Hey, we got so much to lose, yet so much to prove. Hey, Virgin Island teachers never raise no fool. Mama sent me school. Hey, when it's difficult, we still a push through. No matter what the blessings of will continue. We are a people of great value. That's why we stick together like tamarind stew. Aye. Remember Queen Mary, we make the fire burn, and Edward Blyden with the Africa vision. Remember St. John with the slave rebellion. General Butler say emancipation. That's why the place nice, so nice. Sweet, sweet St. Thomas nice, so nice, so nice. St. Cry full of pure vibes, so nice, so nice. St. John a real paradise, so nice, so nice. Hey, we got so much to prove, yet so much to lose. Hey, Virgin Island teachers never raise no fool. Mama sent me school. Yeah. St. Cry produce the band Midnight, and them the kind of roots make the fire ignite, yo. Julian Jackson was a champion in the ring, and now him three son them a do the same thing, yeah. Tim Duncan come from the VI, one of the greatest, and the world can see why, yeah. If you ever ask me where I'm from, born in the Virgin Island, and the whole place nice, so nice, so nice. Sweet, sweet St. Thomas nice, so nice, so nice. St. Cry full of pure vibes, so nice, so nice. St. John a real paradise, so nice, so nice. The Virgin Islands nice, so nice, so nice. Rock City sweet and nice, so nice, so nice. Twin City full of pure vibes, so nice, so nice. Love City a real paradise, so nice, so nice. Hey, I'm so proud to be from the VI, a place of history like the African side.
Talking about a land of beauty, we call it paradise. You want to come down and check we down in the Virgin Isles. We had a share of problems, we know you have yours too. We're doing our best to solve them. We want to welcome you. Come feel our gentle breezes, marvel at a sandy shore. Our crystal sparkling waters, bet you can ask for more. St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John, next door to the PDI. Filled up with fascination, your interest will satisfy. Some people they try to top us, but man they just cannot. I suggest you come and join us, because the VI hot. Hey. Put up your hand them high. Know that you from the VI. Wave your flags up in the sky. Show them we run this party. Show them we rule this fed. Show them we have energy. Tired man will never get. VI, we from the VI. Oh. Sweeter Island. You're amazing. Yeah, yeah. Some of us we leave these islands all over the world we roam. When it comes to carnival time, be ready to come back home. To eat boiled fish and fungi, cherry and torments too. To drink passion fruit and morbi, sea moss to name a few. We have to catch up the juve, jump up behind Jamban. We have to be in the parade, jumping with just action. We have to swim Maidens Bay, Cookie Point and Bessop too. We have to visit St. John, somewhere we have to do. St. Paul is our biggest beauty, historic sites galore. I suggest you come and join us, come down and take a tour. Shout it out, VI, put up your hand them high. Know that you from the VI, wave the flags up in the sky. Show them we run this party, show them we rule this fete. Show them we have energy, tired man we'll never get.
Top 24-hour gas and grocery store. Your number one convenience store. Located across from Vitraco Park. You name it and they have it. From electronic accessories to your favorite drinks. And from gas to groceries. You name it and they have it. First stop 24-hour gas and grocery. Located across from Vitraco Park. Check it out. Your favorite store for gas and grocery.
I'm so proud to be from the VI, a place of history like the African side, yeah. St. Thomas and St. John and St. Dry, nothing can come between us but the waters that divide, yeah. Even though we're just a few square miles, I travel around the world with Virgin Island pride, yeah. A lot of people still going through
To the day, from the water to the pot to your mouth, everything is fresh at Catch of the Day, located on Cookie Point Beach. Enjoy some of your favorite seafood dishes, fresh catch, lobster, tongue, and whelks, when in season, as well as surf and turf. They cater to your wishes. While you sit and wait for your food, enjoy the friendly bar and bask in an ambience that is second to none. Enjoy the white sand, sun, and crystal blue water. We are sure the experience will be unique. Monday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Come and enjoy Catch of the Day on Cookie Point Beach.
People come, let we go. Turn up the radio. Turn it up. This is the people show. No matter where we go. Ten people. We all love you. We are here for you. We can hear you. Correct. 10 people. People come, let we go. Turn up the radio. This is the people show. No matter where we go. Connect the dots, family. Connect the dots, unity. Connect the dots, you and me. Connect the dots.
Good morning. I say good morning to the U.S. Virgin Islands. Good morning. And that includes St. Thomas, St. Croix, St. John, and of course, Water Island. I say good morning to you. It's although we have an overcast here in the U.S. Virgin Islands, it's still a beautiful day here in the U.S. Virgin Islands. But I also want to say good morning to Virgin Islanders everywhere. And I'm talking about throughout the United States, Canada, Russia, Germany, and it goes on and on because we have listeners all over, whether it's via Facebook
or one of the social media platforms, because you can actually view this program via LinkedIn, YouTube, Vimeo, 9 Facebook pages, and I believe Twitter. Even on Twitter, you can view this program. So I wanted to say good morning to everyone. We have a very informative program this morning, scheduled this morning, and we have right here in this studio with us, of course, in another room, because we try to practice social distancing. Right here in the room, we have Mr. Austin L. Nibbs. I don't want to even give you all his titles. We're going to get to that. But he's here in the studio. He is the administrator and the CEO of the GRS system. And I hope that a lot of government employees, those that are vested in the system, as well as retirees, and even those of you who are not government employees, because I keep saying, pay close attention to the system, because we can't afford insolvency, because should that happen, it's going to crush the economy of the U.S. Virgin Islands. But before I go on to that, I wanted to first take this time out to say happy VI Puerto Rico Friendship Day to everyone out there. Everyone out there. As I said to you, Mr. Nibbs, you can see you here in the studio as well.
I'm here in the studio. Thank you for having me, and happy VI Puerto Rico Friendship Day also.
And thank you for accepting our invitation, because I think it's always so important that that we get those stakeholders, those administrators, those who are charged with the responsibility of making major decisions regarding our wealth, our health, and certainly our financial health here in the Virgin Islands, and the GRS system plays a major role. Let me just go ahead to the updates, because I think it's so important to cover, some of these updates, stuff that's going on in the community. But while I was talking about VI Puerto Rico Friendship Day, I don't think that many are aware what VI Puerto Rico Friendship actually represents. And there's a history as it relates to VI Puerto Rico Friendship, and I think that it's always important to be able to even recognize those with that Hispanic Puerto Rico heritage, to recognize them for their major contributions. And there's a lot of people that I could go through the list, and for the purpose of not omitting any, I just want to say thank them. And I'm talking about, I could talk about people that I served with, like Liliana Bellaro, Senator Chucky Hansen. These are all people with Hispanic backgrounds that actually made valuable contributions to shaping the U.S. Virgin Islands. But I want to single someone out this morning, and it's only because of his contributions as well. And I don't think that we realize the many contributions that he made. The Juan Luis Hospital, what is considered, or what is called today, the RLS Snyder Hospital, Regional Hospital. And I'm talking about none other than Juan Francisco Luis. And I wanted to just speak about him just briefly, because I think it's worthy of recognition on this VI Puerto Rico Friendship Day, that we recognize former Governor Juan Luis. And I say Juan Francisco Luis. They used to call him Wang Ching on the street. Yeah. And that's for those that have been in those times and have been exposed to Wang Ching and the circles, the social circles that actually called him that. But I had the utmost respect for him being Hispanic, I think. And I want to just give a little history of him. Juan Francisco Luis was born in Vieques, Puerto Rico in 1940. When he was 2 months old, the family moved to St. Croix, U.S. Virgin Islands. Luis earned an equivalency in pre-medicine from the Inter-American University of Puerto Rico. After returning to St. Croix, he became a 6th grade teacher at the Christiansted Public Grammar School. He also worked briefly as a project office manager for the Department of Housing and Urban Development before he served as the sergeant in the U.S. Army. In 1968, Luis worked as a personal administrative officer in the Virgin Islands Department of Health. From 1970 to 1972, he worked for Litwin Corporation as an industrial relations manager for Burns International as an accountant, and for the Estate Carlton Hotel as a personnel manager and controller. Luis was elected to the Virgin Islands Senate in 1972. In 1974, he was elected lieutenant governor and was sworn in as governor on January 2nd, 1978, following the death of Cyril E. King. He was elected governor in November 1978. Juan Luis passed on June 4th, 2011. And I just wanted to pay respect to him and tribute to him because, after all, he made some valuable contributions towards the upliftment of the U.S. Virgin Islands. And on this special day, VI Puerto Rican Friendship Day, I just wanted to recognize him as a Hispanic who made invaluable contributions towards the development of the U.S. Virgin Islands. So happy VI Puerto Rican Friendship Day to everyone. And para que sepan, yo sé cómo hablar español también. Pero esta mañana estamos en una entrevista con alguien que tenemos aquí, pero que tengan un buen día. VI Puerto Rican Friendship Day to everyone. And moving along on the agenda, of course, condolences to our many families who have lost some loved ones. And I just wanted to extend in particular Franklin Williams, Jaleno Olasi Riviere, Paul Raymond Nistrick Jr., and Peggy Neal Simmons. And, you know, people passing every day, and it seems like the older we get is the more people that we know that appear under the obituaries each week. But, you know, my condolences to those families. And then moving along, it's, I saw in the newspaper this morning the prison system on St. Croix and all the deficiencies that they're claiming exist in the system. And you know, some of these monitors that come into the Virgin Islands, and I'm hoping that we could get some monitors on these radio stations and provide interviews, because I think it's so important to truly understand and be able to measure their performance in terms of taking us out the quagmire that we find ourselves in, and that's to include the police department, the consent decree, which has gone on over, I think it's going on 12 years that we have this consent decree, and we need to take that off the backs of the police department, period. And I'm saying police officers as well, to take it off their back. This consent decree have gone on too long. And if you want to enlist my services, I'm willing to come in and help if you call upon me. Because a man once said that experience is worthless. And I'm going to get to that a little later on. Folks, I don't know how many of you had the opportunity to watch this fight on TV, and I keep telling people about sports tourism. Let's not forget sports and entertainment tourism. And you know, they had a boxing event on TV. I'm quite sure many of you had the opportunity to tune in to the Fury versus Wilder. I wanted Wilder to come back, and maybe there would be a fourth fight. It was a great fight, and he did his best. But fate has it that Fury won the fight again and became linear. He's not only the linear champion, but he's world champion. Not all the belts. There's still one looming out there that I think is now in Russia by a gentleman named Usyk. But we're expecting that to take place as well, which is going to be a mega fight. Vaccination lottery. What's going on with this vaccination lottery? I haven't heard of any more winners. I haven't heard how the program concluded. We haven't heard anything about this vaccination lottery. And I'm hoping, I'm going to do some research, because I need to find out what happened to that $1 million that was supposed to be earmarked for residents to kind of propel them, encourage them to go be vaccinated for money. But we'll get back to that at a later date as well. And folks, the official hurricane shelters. I still have not received a list. If anyone is listening from Vitima, if you could share with me the official hurricane shelters so I can share with the public, it would be really, really appreciated, because I think it's so important. While we're still in hurricane season, you know, some people believe that if you pass the month of September, October, then that means that you're no longer in danger. Go back to the previous dates. Go back to 1989, Hurricane Hugo, and see when it actually struck the U.S. Virgin Islands. And then you could come forward with Hurricane Marilyn, Bertha, Irma, Maria. So we're still in hurricane season, folks. And we need to know exactly where the shelters are located. But Virgin Islanders, this morning, listeners and viewers, this morning, what we will be discussing this morning is, of course, we're going to have a robust discussion with Mr. Nibbs this morning. And I just wanted to take the time out just to give you a little caption of the GRS system, and I'm going to put it up on the screen even for folks who are viewing social media to understand the GRS system, when it was created, for what purpose. And we're going to have Mr. Nibbs here in the studio to expound and discuss, as I ask him questions, of course, his agenda, and to discuss a lot of things about the GRS system. The Government Employees Retirement System of the Virgin Islands, which is acronym GRS, enacted by the 3rd Legislature of the Virgin Islands on June 24th, 1959 by Act 479, was created as a defined benefit pension plan for officials and employees of the government of the Virgin Islands, and for the dependents and beneficiaries of that respective system. And I think this morning it's so important that we get in a very in-depth discussion with Mr. Nibbs about not just the conditions of the GRS system, but incorporate the future of the GRS system, because that is so important. And before I open up this discourse, I want to just speak about some of the stuff that has been floating around out there. And of course, a lot of residents, a lot of government employees in particular, have been very concerned, because all we continue to hear is that it's a possibility that the GRS system is going to go insolvent. And some of the other stuff that you hear quite often is that the retirees' pensions are going to be cut by some 40%. And I think Mr. Nibbs and I had a discussion before. And of course, I don't know if he would be at liberty to discuss the position of the board on some of these, but I suspect, and I'll safely assume, that his comments this morning is a reflection of the board as well. And it's we're looking forward just to getting some of the answers that, you know, government employees and others are looking for, because remember that the economy could potentially be affected, which means that a lot of the private sector could be affected as well. You're talking about stores, grocery stores, clothing stores, and other stores can be affected, that government employees are no longer out there spending the level of dollars that they were spending, and they would have to restrain themselves because they're financially affected, and affected in the worst way. But we don't want to spell, or we don't want to be trumpeting that, what you call it again? Loom and doom?
Doom and doom.
Yeah. We don't want to continue saying that over and over. We want to look forward with some level of some promise that the GERS system is going to get better, but we just want to know the future. We want to know what exists, but we also want to know what the forecast of the GERS system is going to be. So I want to say good morning to you, Mr. Nibbs. Thank you for accepting the invitation, and you're live on the air. You could introduce yourself.
Okay, good morning again, Senator, and good morning to the listening public. I'm glad to be here representing the Government Employees Retirement System. You know, every time I speak publicly on behalf of GRS, I want to be able to come and say that everything is improving. And I just heard a senator said gloom and doom. I'm not here to preach any gloom and doom, but I'm going to give you the facts. And the facts are based on the numbers that I deal with every day, the board deals with every day. Decisions have to be made. Presently, our actuary, the last actuarial valuation was done through October 2020. We're now into fiscal year 2022, so we don't have the latest figures. We'll have those in a few months. However, the actuary has projected, if nothing is done to fund the system on an actuarial basis, it can run out of assets by October 2024 or sooner. And sooner means that it depends on what the market conditions are with our investments. Presently, I projected through the end of this, the last month, which was fiscal year 2021, our benefits and expenses would annualize to approximately $280 million. Well, where do we get that $280 million to pay the retirees? Where do we get the $280 million to pay the retirees? Well, we collect employee and employer contributions every other week from payroll deductions, and the employer pays in at 23.5%. And annualized through September, I project we should receive about $150.2 million. Well, there's a deficit there because we have to pay out benefits and expenses to a tune of $280 million. So where do we get that deficit, those monies from, to shore up, to make sure that the retirees are able to earn their 100% benefits? Well, we have to dig into our assets, which is mainly our market, our liquidity of market assets and stock on the that are invested. So this year we withdrew $109 million. So that means that it comes up 150.2 to 109 million. It's about 259 million. We still have a deficit, so we still have to dig in. And I think this month, October, I signed something last week, pulling down or withdrawing another $15 million. So as you see the situation that we're in, our benefits and expenses are more than the contributions and even what we are withdrawing from our portfolio. So that means that if we continue to withdraw from our portfolio on a monthly basis, the system would run out of assets, liquid assets now. I'm not talking about our real assets. We do have our real assets, and I'm not too sure if you've been following the board's decision. Recently, the board voted to not to sell the assets at this time, the real assets. So we only have our liquid assets. So what we're saying is that if there's no change, meaning if there's no infusion of cash, or there's no change in the benefit structure to the retirees, because as you know, 2 years ago, the board wrote a memo to the governor and also to the legislature, giving them two options: either to reduce the benefits approximately about 40% and infuse funding into the system. Now, there's been some talk about doing a pension obligation bond. That is something is still on the table. I think there's some appetite for it in the legislature and probably in the administration, because this system, if allowed to fail, will cause an economic ripple in the community. And as you know, a lot of our retirees are seniors, and medicines goes up, the medication goes up, the cost of living is up. So it's going to cause a hardship on them. So we are hoping that, and we're working with the select subcommittee, where Senator Vele is the chairman of that committee, and I attend those meetings along with Chairman Bowery, Nelson Bowery, and we have a pretty good rapport. And I'm feeling happy. I'm feeling that things are going to move correctly, and I must say that the senators that are on that committee, they really sit down and come up with ideas. However, we now have to sit down and look and determine exactly what to do, where we're going to get these revenues from, because these are new revenues now. Most of these have to be new revenues, and you have to look the source of these new revenues. Trying to avoid a cut in the benefits of the retirees. So that's where we are basically. We are trying our utmost best. We discuss this every day with senators. I mean, on a daily basis. Some senators come individually, and like I said, we've been discussing this with the subcommittee because we have an unfunded liability about $4.4 million right now, and a total obligation of over $5 billion. I'm sorry, I'm using the wrong first letter. It's billions of dollars we're talking about now. The obligations to all our members over $5 billion. The unfunded liability is about $4.4 billion. So we know that we're not going to be able to get that amount from the government or the plan sponsor right now. However, there must be some down payment or some payment on this debt. Or else if we don't, we're going to have catastrophe in this Virgin Islands.
Okay, well, thank you, Mr. Nibbs. And I just have, of course, I have some pointed questions, and I wanted to go through. You covered at least two of the questions that I was about to ask. And I want to now go back and start to ask you questions about the system itself, how it actually operates. But even before I start on that, there was one question I had to ask. I know that there was an issue with retirees coming back and re-entering the system, whether it was under a contractual basis or employment itself in different capacities. And I believe that the board and yourself defined what type of retirees or under what conditions retirees can come back and be employed. Did you issue a memo at one point? I believe it just came to mind, a memo at one point addressing that particular issue?
Yes, we did. Right now the law states that only police officers, firefighters, I think teachers and nurses can come back to work. Police officers, teachers, and nurses can come back to work for 2 years and continue receiving the benefits. However, they don't pay in any contributions. Those are the only individuals that can come back to work. Now, like you said, there's some individuals who are coming back on contracts, third-party contracts and things like that. We have had discussions within, and I've had discussions with some senators that maybe, and I know that one senator, I'm not going to call a name, are looking at doing something like this, but we don't have a problem with retirees coming back to work. However, they come back to work because of shortages, you can't get positions filled within certain critical departments, then they should pay in the employee share and the employer share, because we wouldn't lose anything.
You see, the reason I'm asking you that question, because, I weighed in on that possibility, and I remember even the governor had addressed an issue. In fact, I'll go as far as to say that I remember during the course or during a public forum, he indicated that experience was worthless. And it was that point that I had realized that there was an intent to really just outright disenfranchise retirees based on that statement. But now the question, I want to bring it full circle to you now. I know you were CEO administrator employed with the GRS system, and I understand that you retired. Now, are you on contract, or are you actually was returned to employment with GRS?
I'm in the same employee-employer relationship. All I have is a contract specifying certain things I can do and cannot do.
Okay, and
so I'm still paying in my contributions and getting my regular bi-weekly pay the same way. Just a contract stipulating certain provisions.
Okay. Yeah, because that aroused my curiosity, and I just wasn't sure what the conditions were in terms of the. Now let's start talk. We spoke about the funding, and you just applauded some members of the Senate for coming up with creative ways of generating new revenues, and was that to be earmarked to the GRS system?
Yes, I can be specific because I'd rather have Senator Vele or someone in that committee speak to that. But we have made a decision of, agree that we would not say anything while the deliberations are going on. But yes. Okay.
Well, I remember having some discussions even with the governor, where I mentioned to him that there are revenue-producing programs out there. They came up with the medicinal marijuana, which the legislation or the amendment is now looming before the Senate to make it recreational, to get it off the ground. But I also learned from the Commissioner of Licensing that rules and regulations were going to be put in place after a director was appointed to that the Licensing and Consumer Affairs to oversee the medicinal marijuana, its enactment, and the program in general, and that revenues from there is supposed to go to the GRS system. Now, I don't want to get into quantitative and and all of that stuff, because any projections that they would provide today would not be accurate in terms of the actual that you would be receiving from such a program. But I can only revisit and hope that the governor, even with the internet gaming, that he puts that in place and earmark some of the percentage that the government is receiving straight to the GRS system, because it would make sense and it would be significant revenues, because I believe that internet license is actually for hosting, that you could bring several internet gaming companies, different sports betting, to come in under the umbrella to ensure that and guarantee that the government receives a significant amount of revenues. So now let's skip over to liquidity, because you mentioned liquidity and you said that you weren't liquidating the assets. And I know you and I are friends, and I know you had a concern with the last radio broadcast where I spoke about the West Indian company, the mall that belongs to the GRS system, and whether or not there were rumors being circulated. And if I may clarify what I said, there were rumors that were born by some of the very same merchants or retailers that are over there, who claimed that they were approached about combining their resources to be able to buy the mall. Was there any discussion about selling the mall?
I am not aware of any. No one approached me. Any one of the merchants approached me. Yes, the board in 2015, after they adopted the dynamic asset allocation, they made a decision, and there was a resolution that said they would have, they need to sell all assets. And all assets included our, stocks and bonds and all our real assets, our Havenside Mall, our buildings, our properties, lands that we own. Now, since that time, last month, the board reversed that decision and has put a hold on any sale of any real assets.
So the board made a decision before or after my radio broadcast on the issue of...
No, this was, I mean, the new board members came in. I mean, it's a new board. And I think that's the dynamic is different. And they just made a decision that we should not sell. And I wasn't in favor of selling all the assets. But, when the board makes a decision, I have to carry out the decision. So it's a new board, like I said, and they made a decision, and it was a majority decision to just put a hold on selling out of any assets, any real assets.
Well, the question that I asked was whether or not they had deliberated after my program or before.
Well, it would have been after your program.
We'll leave it alone because I know the exact date. Well, we'll leave it alone. Unequivocally, I've said it publicly. Two reasons why I don't believe in liquidating that assets. An elderly wise man once said, he now passed, but I call him a wise man. I won't disclose who it is. But he once said 2 things that you don't divest yourself of as a government, and that is your communication or your power, electricity. And we divested ourselves of one already. I don't believe in divesting our assets, our valuable assets. And I believe that if you think about it, this is an asset that you're not paying taxes for. Is that correct?
No, we don't pay taxes.
Okay, you ain't paying taxes on the property, and everything would be straight income that you should generate on the property without that obligation there of paying property taxes. Why would you want to liquidate that asset?
Well, because the thinking was that those assets were bought by employee contributions from the employee. And if the system is going to become insolvent, we should liquidate those assets to pay the retirees. That was the thinking at the time.
Well, I think the ultimate option should be that the senators are going to have to get up and start proposing legislation to generate revenues, to protect the interests of not just government workers, the people of the Virgin Islands. And the second reason for me was the issue of former Governor Alex Farrelly, God rest his soul, his legacy. And I know what that meant to the Farrelly Hodge administration back in those times. And that's their legacy. And they left that behind for the people of the Virgin Islands. And for us to be divesting ourselves of any part, parcel, or portion of that is not something I think it will sit well with a lot of people. So I'm glad, Mr. Nibbs, that you cleared that up this morning and that the board reversed its position. The latest actuarial valuation. Now, your actuaries, your consultants, and I know that they have an investment portfolio, that your investment portfolio that they work with. Within the last 10 years, has any of the investments, if any, within the last 10 years, wielded any profit margins?
Oh, yes. I mean, let's look at it. In the last 22 years, there were 16 out of 22 good years. And those bad years were during 2008, 2001, 2000, and then in 2013, 14, and 15, around there. Other than that, our hurdle rate was 8%, and we were earning 16%, 17%. So yes, the system has always been profitable.
Okay.
The problem is that the profits were used, obviously, to pay the retirees. So if we were not making those funds, because this system has been in a deficit position for quite some time, going on 30 years. So the profits from those investments were shoring up the system.
Are you on the board? Has you on the board been fully exposed to the algorithm that they use for their investments?
Well, we don't have any investments per se right now. We have just only about two or three investment managers. We used to have 17 investment managers a few years ago.
Yeah.
So we are now into bonds because we have de-risked the portfolio. because we are withdrawing from the system every month, and you're lowering the base. We do not want to take the risk to go back into stocks. Those stocks are doing well, right now. But the board has made a decision based on, consultants' recommendations that we should de-risk the portfolio and not take that chance.
Okay. Yeah, because you see, it's so important when we come to this algorithm. And I know some of you still have relationships, or let me put it this way, your actuarial and your consultants, as I would refer to them. You've had relationships for over like 25 years, is that correct?
Yeah, well, the investment advisor, the last 12 years, and Siegel, over 30 years.
Okay.
Our actuary is over 30 years, but our investment advisor, in 2012, I think he came in.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Because I think I shared with you already that I believe with algorithm, with that algorithm, a mathematical formula to determine the trends and consistencies and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, we get reports. I mean, usually once a year we get a report as what they're doing, how they look at the investment algorithms and all of that. So that is in play. But right now, like I said, we have de-risked the portfolio and we're just into bonds.
Now, I'm going to skip over to something as it relates to government employees, and of course vested, those that qualify for the benefits of the system. Did the board had put a moratorium on giving personal loans a few years ago? Is that still in abeyance, meaning is it still on hold?
Yes, it's still on hold, and because of the situation that we're in and the time horizon of becoming insolvent, we didn't want it to go out and give 10-year loans and then something happened, we will have to take it out to the contributions of the employees. Some would not be vested, some may not be able to retire. There's a lot of things that we play into this. What we thought about was lowering the terms from 10 years to 5 years. However, the majority of the people will not be able to qualify because they have so much other debt. They would be going on with zero net pay. But we thought about it, and it was a good program. It netted, the agency used to realize at least a return of maybe $9-10 million every year in interest. So it was a good program. However, based on the liquidity of the system, if this system can be turned around and there's funding available for that, sure, I would say maybe on a limited basis, not $50,000 limit, maybe bring it down to $10,000 a loan or something like that.
But here is what's perplexing for me. When you weigh in on the grander scale, the loans that was issued to Carambola, Seabourn, and even West Bay, isn't a government employee loan, let's say $10,000 is the maximum, a government employee loan more secure against the annuity or the contributions that they would have made? Isn't the government employee, that small loan, more secure for the system?
Well, to tell you the truth, yes, because if they default, or so let's say for the instance they resign and they did not come in and pay out of pocket, we would take it out of the accumulated contributions. So yes to your answer.
So why put that in a moratorium, and still even after the moratorium issue loans to entities that may not even be as secure as those personal loans to government employees? That's I try to weigh in on that, because we're talking about, of course, apple and oranges. When I say apple and oranges, meaning that when you look at the size of the loan, those balloon loans that would be afforded to a corporate citizen versus a group of government employees that collectively probably wouldn't surpass more than $10 million in those small personal loans. Every one of those small personal loans are guaranteed. And on the flip side, on the grander scale, these large corporations that receive these loans, it's not really secure. But of course,
well, you have the collateral available. Also, that alternative investment program is through legislation, and most of those loans were high risk, so the interest rates were higher than the 8% that we would have received from the employee. Carambola, obviously we lost on that somewhat. We sold it for about $9 million, and we got insurance about $17 million. On Seaborn, we got everything that we gave Seaborn plus 30% interest. On the KFC, they paid their loans in advance, 3 years in advance. Unfortunately, West Bay, it was something good. However, there were some blunders along the line, but we got every money that we gave them. We gave them 11 million. We got back 12 point something million, and the 3.4 million now is in litigation with the principals.
Okay, and that you said West Bay.
West Bay or VI Finest.
Okay.
West Bay Supermarket.
Okay, with West Bay, I know that the Inspector General came in and he inspected. Is there any part of the inspector report that you object to?
Sometimes you take one transaction and you said failed to. Well, let's take this for instance. The claim that we failed to monitor the loan program. Well, let me say this: we hired a reputably experienced engineering architectural firm as our owner's rep. Their responsibility was to go out there and inspect the asset, the building and whatever, and would sign off on all invoices that comes in. When it comes to me, I have the investment person in the investment unit. They would look at the budget because all of those things had budget. They were budgeted how much they're going to cost, because based on the amount of funds we gave them, there was a budget. They would liquidate and make sure that the monies are there. Then they would come to me to pay off. Now the problem was we had hired an outside accountant to monitor the accounting system every month, and the records were not forthcoming, and that was the big problem right there, because we couldn't see what they were paying for.
Yeah,
we would give them the monies, but we didn't see what they were paying for. So when I were to make a blanket statement that we failed, we did what we had to do, but one thing we couldn't do was to look at the records. Plus, their personal outside accountant CPA, she wasn't even getting the records also, because we were supposed to be getting timely financial statements, and we can go back and see how they made payment based on what we issued to them.
Well, let me step back a little bit and bear in mind, as a host, I'm just looking at things objectively.
Yeah.
Now, reading that article in the paper, it could easily give anyone the impression that the initial loan called for what? $9 million? I
think it was about $8 million.
$8 million. And it elevated from $8 million to what?
It elevated from $8 million. They got another 2.7, so we rounded off to $11 million.
Okay, so round off to $11 million. At the point when the $8 million was almost exhausted, would you say that there were red flags that this was going to be high risk?
Yes, we saw that there were red flags, but now you're into what, 80 or 75% of a project, a building?
Yeah.
And you want it to be successful.
Okay.
They came back and they asked for $2.7 million. Now they came with their architect. There were discussions, presentations to the board. Our architect engineer, who was our owner's rep, they reviewed it and all that. And they were legitimate, but there were problems that occurred initially that they didn't foresee. Let's say, for instance, when they start digging the foundation, they found sewer lines under there. So they had to go to DPNR, and that forestalled a lot of things, and it created more costs.
Okay.
So, I mean...
Change orders.
Yes. Well, the inspector said cost overruns.
Yeah.
But, so we knew about that. But the project had to be completed. We wanted the project completed. So they came and they showed us exactly based, and they actually labeled each expense that they needed, that came up to the $2.7 million. And presentations were made, like I said, more than one presentation by their architect and engineer. We saw the drawings. They came to the board. Our architect, engineer, owner's rep looked at it, and we said, okay. And the board made a decision to fund the 2.7.
So would you say that at the end of the day, or ultimately, It is the government employees' contributions that are being used to provide these loans.
Yes.
And of course, I think every government employee expect that both board and yourself would be extremely prudent
Yes.
in the decisions that you make. And you see, I think that the reflection for a lot of government workers, they feel as though that this money was placed down a black hole. And bear in mind, when we talk about the GRS system, many are grounded in the idea or the notion that the GRS system is supposed to be benefits for the employees, and if we can't even get a small loan like 10,000 when we need it, with that guarantee that our annuities is there to pay back. I mean, you know, I'll tell you, Mr. Nibbs, putting all of that aside, I'm worried.
Well, we were willing to at least change the terms from 10 years to 5 years, but the employees would not have been able to pay back.
Yeah, because you raise the amount that they have to pay per payday.
Correct.
Yeah, but that's
and it was a good program, and I mean, I hope it can come back if the system is funded properly, because we did well. You know, our return was 11 million dollars annually on the loans. Right now, the balance that we have on books is about $24 million left. That should be finished by 2024, 2025.
And that's what I wanted to get to. That's exactly what I wanted to get to, because, see, on the flip side of it, we expect you guys to protect our interests. And in protecting our interests, we understand that there's going to be situations where the board and yourself want to save an entity because it only but makes sense to make sure that you are guaranteed a return on your investment. So we weigh in on your decision making, and us hope, when I say your decision making, meaning you and the board, that organization, because at the end of the day, it all affects the system. And the true benefactors of the system, I've always believed, should be the employees. And I'm sure you feel the same way.
Sure.
I want to open up the lines to allow for people to now call in. As I indicated, I wait until like 15 minutes, 10 minutes before the hour to allow for people to call in. The number here at WST is 340-774-1340. Program Connect the Dots. Here with Mr. Nibbs this morning. I'll continue the discussion, Mr. Nibbs, until we start hearing from some of the folks. Yeah, the GRS system as it stands right now, let me see. Okay. The GRS system as it stands right now, you're saying that you have cash until 2025.
Well, about around October 2024 or sooner.
Or sooner.
Correct.
And this has been conveyed to both the governor and the Senate.
Oh, yes, they get copies of the report. It's on the website also, www.usvigrs.com.
And what infusion of cash have you gotten within the last year?
Infusion? When you're talking about infusion, you know, I'm looking at millions of dollars. We do get, there was some monies that we got from the settlement, the court settlement. We got $5 million there. I know that they have budgeted in the 2022 budget that $19 million that is left. And I also saw in the budget miscellaneous section from the Internal Revenue Fund $10 million. We take it, it helps, but it's not going to solve the problem.
Well, you know, there was a time when in legislation, and I'll go back to the Senate, in the days that I was there as finance chair, we had put in place the fair share contribution coming from all independent instrumentalities. I think you recall that, correct?
Yes.
And of course, that was eliminated and taken out, I believe, completely. Now, that was some form of relief. But when you're talking about only $1 million a year, that's a drop in the bucket for the GRS system. Nevertheless, I think now what we're grappling, or what the territory is grappling with, is trying to ensure some solid revenue producing program that is tied to the GRS system. And that is specifically what you're looking for, correctly?
Yes, correct. Let me say, the plan sponsors, which are the central government and municipalities, are paying 23.5% of payroll every other week.
Yeah.
Based on the actuarial assumptions, they should be paying at least 90.5%
Okay,
of
Mr.
payroll.
Nibbs, let me interrupt you. I'll just go to a telephone call.
Oh, okay, sure.
Good morning. You're on the air. Connect the dots.
Yes, good morning, Fonzie. Good morning, Mr. Nibbs.
Good morning.
Let me say, Mr. Nibbs, thanks for coming on and explaining the process with the JRS to the retirees and the people of the Virgin Islands. Well, my question, I heard you mention about the asset that the JRS system have, and the board made a decision not to sell some time back. But why haven't the board agreed, or maybe because haven't agreed to invest in the assets that they have so they can generate more revenues?
Well, we have invested in the assets. The two complexes are rented. In St. Thomas, we have rentals. We receive rentals. In St. Croix, we receive rentals from the Pleasant Healthcare plus the Casino Commission. For the Havenside Mall, obviously things are not the way it should be based on the pandemic. We used to make a profit on that mall.
Hold on, Mr. Nibbs. I'm hearing a lot of noise in the background. Do you have your radio on still?
No, my radio's on, but I can hear you now. I can hear you better now.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Nibbs.
Yeah, I mean the Havenside Mall, no fault of our own.
But I'm not hearing Mr. Nibbs good. I can hear you, but I'm not hearing him good.
Oh, you're not hearing him good? Mr. Nibbs, maybe, I'm not sure where you can't hear him good. Go ahead, Mr. Nibbs.
Yeah, based on, what happened with Havenside Mall with the pandemic, no monies are going to be made until those cruise ships start to come in. So usually we made a profit. We always made a profit with the Havenside Mall. I mean, years ago we used to gross about $9 million a year in income. However, the income is down. Obviously, it's down now significantly. But we have pulled a pretty good team together, and we are doing whatever to be done. There's some infrastructure developments that we are looking at. We have done some before, but there's certain things we looking at and we want to do a development over there. And we want to really, I had a chance to go to the Sea Trade a couple of weeks ago. That's my first time in 14 years, and I was astonished. I mean, we met with the celebrity, executives, and asked them questions about cruise destination and what they would like to see in the mall. And I think we have to really start doing cultural things in the mall. Jewelry stores is not going to get it anymore. When you come to a country like ours, you want to learn about a culture right after you get off the dock, see things that are happening, go into stores that you can buy things of cultural means. But so we have invested. As far as the properties, there was a project that when I came in 2007, I was on the board, the drawing board, to do a convention center over there in Hoffman-Nollyburg, office complex, hotel, and lots for members to buy lots with a mortgage from us, and also assisted living homes for the retirees. That fell through. It didn't happen. Also in St. Croix, there was a plan area development that was supposed to be done, also with the intent to sell lots to the members. We would issue the mortgages, sell lots so they can build homes, and that also did not come to fruition.
I'm glad you brought that up, because that was going to be my next question. So what are the possibilities of that coming back to the drawing board?
Well, we have to count our pennies every day so that we can pay the retirees. I don't think nothing can be done right now. If we can get an inflow of cash from the plan sponsor, or legislature can come up with legislation to dedicate revenues to the system, I can foresee things happening. But at this point in time, no. Unless we maybe get a public-private partnership with a developer that can be explored. But right now, using our funds, no.
Okay, we have another call coming in.
Well, can I ask you one more question? I'm glad
sure.
that you brought that up. Public partnerships, I think, is the responsibility of the legislature. As you said, that some of them are on the board with you, to reach out and make sure that happens, because that would definitely be of great assistance to the system. So thanks again for responding to the question that I'd asked.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
And thank you for your contribution. Okay, we lost the call. Anyway, the number to call here, WST, is 774-1340, 1340. Connect the dots with Mr. Austin Nibbs. Good morning, you're on the air. Connect the dots.
Yeah, good morning from Mr. Nibbs.
Yeah, good morning.
In the short term, a question to Mr. Nibbs. In the short term, how much of a cash infusion do you need to the GRS system need to at least, make something dent?
Well, I mean, there's talks about, there's a $600 million pension obligation bond on the books. That is being explored. However, this is only going to be stopgap. You need monies long term. So it's not that if we receive the $600 million, obviously, yes, we'll infuse it into the market. I mean, maybe we, look at the way we've diversified the portfolio so we can get higher. Maybe the board will consider going back into high risk, and things like that. But that's not the answer. It's going to only be for a period of time, maybe a few years or 3 years, but we're going to put those monies in to work for us so that we won't have to be pulling down so much monies from the portfolio. But the legislature and the plan sponsor, which is the government of the Virgin Islands, would have to look at ways where they can look at long-term funding, sustainability of the fund.
You there? Hello? Okay, you already hung up. Well, it's obvious the message that you're conveying to the public, Mr. Nibbs, and that's that we need to get off our laurels and start coming up with tangible things. Because if there's no revenue stream that has a long life and continuity, I don't see how else you're going to be safe unless you identify, and going back to this term algorithm, you find an algorithm that can identify the best investments, and you land an investment or stocks like a Hillary Clinton did years ago, where you pay a minimal amount for them and it balloons or it matures up into with a 600% growth. That is the kind of thing that we would like to land. But of course, you wouldn't encourage a government to any inside trading or any of the sort.
Right.
And that we want to see that the GRS system is able to prosper. And I think that, with those two revenue producing programs that I mentioned earlier, which is the internet gaming and this medicinal marijuana, the medicinal marijuana ain't going to even come close to that internet gaming if we're able to host a number of these companies here in the Virgin Islands. Of course, granting them some benefits or incentives for them to want to come to the Virgin Islands. It's already in place. It's already law. It's just that the administration need to really start doing their research and look into it and marry it, be able to divert a percentage of it to go to the GRS system. Just like, what are we doing different from the private sector? It's the culture of government that and it's public service that makes us different from the private sector. So our characteristics are totally different. But Mr. Nibbs, if I give you a couple minutes to close off, because we're at the end of the hour and I think we covered a lot. But I wanted to thank you for being on the program this morning, and I just want to grant you 2 minutes to at least close off and say whatever you want to say to the public.
Okay. In regards to the medicinal marijuana, I just want to say I think it's pegged at about $15 million. Well, the retiree payroll is $21 million a month and climbing. So, yes, we thank you for the $15 million. However, there still is going to be a short gap. Hopefully, what I've conveyed to the members, especially the retirees today, is that they have to be very vigilant. We know what the numbers are. There's a countdown, okay? And if this plan sponsor or the legislature does not shore up that deficit, you're looking at a cut in your benefits. I can't say what percentage it will be, but if your benefits and expenses about $280 million, let's say the benefits about 65 million, and you have administrative expenses, who is going to pay?
Yeah.
And when the assets are gone. So there has to be some, I don't know what I'm pushed towards the legislature. You speak to your senators. I mean, maybe we're going to have some more town hall meetings or something like that so people can come out and voice their opinions. And I'm glad that you invited us this morning, because we have to keep it in forefront what is going to occur to the system and to the economy of the Virgin Islands and to the retirees and the active members, because you must remember the active members are still paying in. They don't know if they're going to be a retirement for them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's a serious situation right there. So I'm glad that you invited us and keeping the message on the forefront. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Nibbs. I just want to thank you as well, for taking the time out. And today is a holiday, a government holiday, for you to take the time out to even come down here to subject yourself to an interview. And of course, there's not always the promise of a level discussion, but that's one of the things that I try to assure my guests, that there is in fact a cordial discussion here. So I think government employees who are listening, as well as people in general who are listening to the broadcast, appreciate the fact that you were able to come here and disclose some valuable information to them, that they could really be the trumpets to appeal to even the Senate and the governor of the Virgin Islands to do something significant to save, to ensure the longevity or an extended life for the GRS system. So thank you, for being on the program this morning. And to the listening audience, as we move on to other weeks, I'll be making announcements as to special guests that we will have here in the program, and try to address those pressing issues that are of relevance to you, that is important to you and that you're concerned with. But always remember that this is your platform, that you're able to call in here, express yourself, or even bring to my attention or to the attention of the public things that should be of great importance to them. So until next Monday, this has been Atla Fonsi Danastog, your host of Connect the Dots, every Monday morning from 10 to 11 a.m. Please have a wonderful day and a productive week. God bless.
Thank you.
People come, let we go. Turn up the radio. Turn it up. This is the people show. No matter where we go. Connect the dots, family. Connect the dots, unity. Connect the dots, for you and me. Connect the dots. We want to thank each and every one of you for tuning in to Connecting the Dots, as we look forward to hearing from you next Monday. Connecting people.
Get your dose of music.
Like we do it. 'Cause no one can do it like we do it, like we do it. the ride, so